Okay, welcome back to episode 10. And right off the bat, I want to thank everyone who has subscribed. Our numbers are really getting up this year. We appreciate that. And I wanted to go back to this image that we saw in episode 8, the Thornwood Castle episode in the beginning, where we showed some of our CPI uh, images that we have captured over the years. And this is one of them. You may remember, you had the Dark Man, you had this kid, you had the firefighter was in there, and you had the blacksmith as well. So yeah, so if you haven't seen the Thornwood Castle episode number 8, go back and check that out, and you'll know exactly what we're talking about. But we definitely, I kind of halfway promised that if we had time, that I would actually show you the actual video where this came from. And I think that last episode 8 was like an hour and 17 minutes or something like that. We generally try to keep it between 45 minutes and just an hour, but sometimes we just have a lot of information that comes from these evaluations that we do from these people that travel to all these different locations. And so remember, that's why we put the video link down in the description. We really want you to see the evidence that we get from that evaluation, but we want you to definitely go over and check these people's videos out. Like I said, these people travel to these locations and they put a lot of time and effort in there, and we appreciate it. And for us, we're a science organization and it's basically a science channel, and we're only using a program that we created to evaluate that footage, and we basically only try to show you the evidence that they didn't see. I mean, we're not showing you anything that's actually in their videos that they recognized and they put out there. We're showing you the stuff that's either invisible to the eye or went by so quick in the footage that everyone missed it, including us. When we go back and we know what we're actually looking for in these videos, and still we just miss it as well. So you need a program like the Iroquois Technology to show you what's in these films. So it really is no different than an X-ray. You could take a photograph of someone's leg all day long. It doesn't mean that you're going to show a fracture, but the equipment that's out now allows us to see fractures based on the X-ray technology. So that's kind of how the Iroquois technology is. It's just a different piece of equipment that allows you to see a lot more detail than you would normally see. Yes, a photograph of a person's compound fractured broken leg, you don't really need an X-ray to see that compound fracture. But if it's not a compound and it's more of a hairline fracture or just an internal and didn't break the skin, you would definitely need an X-ray machine to see that. And that's really what we're doing here. We're more in lines with that, and then we're also more in lines with a more like a TV or a movie review uh, organization when we talk about what actually happened and what you can expect to see in the video once you go to the link and look at it. So we like the service that we're providing. It gives validity to these people, and I can't say ghost hunters because a lot of these people, all these images, people are not ghost hunters. They're just people going out taking different adventures, and some of them, those adventures take them to haunted locations. So we're starting to notice that people are really getting away from that tag ghost hunter and just being more adventurous. And we like that as well because you don't have to have background in ghost hunting to be able to discover something on film. Basically, all you have to do is walk through a location and you'll hear noises, you'll see things move, sometimes you'll see shadows, and you don't have to be a ghost hunter for that. The majority of the people in the world who have encountered supernatural activity are just everyday, what we call John Q citizens. And most of those are during the light of day, they're not even at night. So that was one thing that always confused us of why ghost hunters decided to go out and try to discover apparitions at night in the dark, because clearly from this image you can see that there's nothing in the dark that isn't there during the day. And if given a chance, which one do you want to see? Do you want to see a shadow, or do you want to see a kid that's basically you can see, with your eyes. But we still see a lot of ghost hunting teams that are out there still kind of doing it the old ways, and that's fine because they have huge fan base that follow them and enjoy that, that, darkness. It gives them a little extra thrill. But if you really want to see what's in the dark, what's moving that door, what's pushing that closet closed, we suggest to all people who go out and do this, do it, with the lights on. Do it during the day. Don't wait until the sun goes down. It's always best to do that. So here you go with this kid right here. And so what we want to show you is this image right here. This is a side by side, and you really see how he looked before we applied anything. And to the left is exactly how he looks. And so in the episode 8, I talk about how it really just took like 5 minutes to colorize him, and it did, because he was just already there. So I want to show you just a bit of that video where we're driving down the road and where we actually capture it. The video is a lot longer. We're really just focused on him. We learned not, this is our video, so we can show as much of it as we want, but we've learned not to show so much because once again, people really get thrilled about, the Iroquois Technology discovering something. And usually if there's one there's other stuff in the area. And we evaluate everything that's in every shot. The Iroquois Technology knows every spirit energy, or quin in this case, quantum energy in nature, that's in that footage. And so we learn when we download a larger video, we just get a bunch of people sending us, images, cropped images back of stuff that we already have. We already have all these images, and we definitely want people to take part in this. So we just try to limit it so they don't send a bunch of stuff back that we actually already have. But we love the questions. We love the participation in anything that we do. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to let this run, and then you're just going to see the tree as it goes by. And you'll see that it would be almost impossible to even, who would look at that tree? Any tree. You pass tons of trees when you're out filming. And the Iroquois Technology hit right on it. So that's one thing we love about this footage. So let me go ahead and play that clip real quick. And that was it. So let me go back and play it again for you here. There you go. And there you go. There's the tree right there. So that simple shot right there is why we have this amazing image for you right here of this child. So I'm sure that many of you may be interested in looking at where the fence line is, and the fence line comes up to the bottom of his knee. So let's say that fence is 4 foot, and let's say he's standing 8 feet high. And why is a child so large? Well, what we believe is he is not that large at all. We think that he's appearing that size, and plus we don't even think he's on that tree. What we think is going on is something called equilibrium. And we believe that that boy has the ability to grow in equilibrium to us. So what we're talking about, if an object is moving closer or further away from you, one cannot tell if the object is getting closer or farther away. The one way we perceive this is by the way an object gets bigger or smaller, right? So if we're looking at an object like that, and we say that kid is moving away from us, the way we can tell is not because we can tell he's moving back from us. We tell that because he's getting smaller, and so we just perceive in our mind that he's moving further away. So if he gets larger, from our perspective, we only perceive that he's actually getting closer to us. We don't believe that he's getting larger. We just think he's getting closer. So what we think is these entities have the ability to grow in or decrease in equilibrium. So what I'm saying is, for example, if that child is standing right in front of me, right, and we never see him move, but a split second he disappears. Well, what could have been happening is the entire time where I think he's static, he's actually moving away from me, but he is increasing in equilibrium where I think or I can't tell that he's actually moving away from me. So what he's actually doing would be moving down a hallway. Say if you're in an apartment, let's say, and you're in the living room and there's a hallway that leads down to a back room and a bathroom to the left, let's say. If I'm looking at him and he's moving away from me, but at the same time, he's keeping his same size. As he moves away, he's growing in equilibrium. By the time he gets to the end of that hallway and he darts off to the left, let's say, I will assume that he just disappeared from right in front of me. But what I didn't know that he was actually moving away, increasing in size as he moved away from me. And from my perspective, I could never ever tell that he was moving at all. So what I'm saying is, even though we're coming up the road, we're filming, we don't think that that little boy is on that tree. Actually, we think that that little boy is probably only like 2 feet high. But because he has chosen to be in that space between our vehicle and that tree, and he has the ability to grow in equilibrium or decrease in equilibrium as we get closer to him, he's actually not on that tree. He's between us and that tree, and he's very teeny. But because we are three-dimensional organisms, but we actually view the world in a two-dimensional realm. And so because we actually view things in a two-dimensional realm, we cannot tell that that little boy is only 2 feet tall or smaller than that, and he's actually not on that tree. For us to be able to really, truly, technically view objects in 3D, we would actually have to be in the fourth dimension, looking back on our third dimensional realm to actually view things in 3D. So we actually view things in two-dimensional, right? If you take a sphere, just a round ball, and if you move that closer and farther away from you, the reason we can tell that it's getting further away from us or closer to us is, one, it increases or decreases in size, but it has the light hue that shines upon it that changes. And because of the way that hue changes on that two-dimensional sphere is how we can tell if it's moving further and closer to us. So all of this stuff is relative. We don't think there's a gigantic kid that's on that tree. We think it has to do all with equilibrium. So we just wanted to clarify that. So let's move on with tonight's show. Hi, I am TD McRoy, and this is Paranormal Diagnostic. Let's get started. Okay, this week we're back with Brendan Taylor, and he is in Ireland. We love Brendan's work. Brendan's not a ghost hunter. He's more of an adventurer. They do food reviews. They do a bunch of different things. So we start out right here with Brandon, and immediately we get a hit right above him in that window right there. Okay, so in this shot, you don't see anything. In this very next shot, you see that something or someone has moved into that shot. But not only this window, but if you look far to the right, there's someone that appears in this bushes wearing, or that's all white. So we end up cropping it, and we bring it in closer, and you definitely can see something over there. So we applied the dynamic filtration, and hold on, and this is a new one for us. And this is what we end up capturing. Now, I don't know about you, but to me and to us, it looks like a medieval knight in armor, like from like Knights of the Round Table armor. I can't imagine what else that would be. And what's interesting about this, when I first discovered this video, I didn't pay attention to where they were. They were outside, you know, it could have been any place in the world. So once we discovered this and the dynamic filtration pulled this image out, and first thing I was like, what the heck type of garb is that person wearing? And then I was like, it looks like a medieval suit of armor. And I was like, well, let me see where Brandon is. I didn't know at the time. And I went back and it said Ireland. And it was like, and I'm thinking, there you go. I'm not sure in America if we wore medieval suits of armor, other than maybe for Halloween. We wouldn't be surprised. So to us, do we know what that is? No, we don't. We have no idea. But does it look like a suit of armor? Absolutely. And you got to remember the type of suits of armors we see in museums and history books, whatever. Most cases, those suits of armor were made by, kings and queens, and those were soldiers that wore that. But you also got to remember, regular blacksmith and town folks who wanted to protect themselves as well during these periods would have made their own creations, and their creations would look quite different than the ones that we see that are on display. So that looks like a lot of different individual patterns. It almost looks like shoulder pads there and then a diamond set. But you can see from the left side, it goes down, and then you can see that he actually has his foot propped up on something, and he actually has his left hand weighted down on his knee. That's a pretty common stand for any man. And definitely someone who would have been a warrior of some sort, just to look out and see who these people are that are invading their environment. And remember, these are entities that are outside, so we deem them as positive entities. So far, knock on wood, we haven't seen any what we consider negative entities anywhere in nature. So, anyways, moving on. Now back to the entity in the window. Once again, this is amazing how the Iroquois technology can detect some of the smallest activity and get a hit. And that's exactly what happened here, as well as the one I just showed you in the bushes. And so let me show you the close-up of what we capture. Here's the first image. And you can see it's a woman. Well, it appears to be a woman in something white. But the original image, you don't see anything, and then she appears right about the same time as the knight in the armor. And so we also used another filter here, so let me show you that one as well. So clearly, the Iroquois technology hit on it. We used the dynamic filtration, and you can see there's actually someone in that window. My guess is, could it be a real person that's up in there? It could be, but you got to remember the Iroquois technology got a hit. So something in that window set the Iroquois technology off. So we really doubt that it's actually a real person, just in case someone was thinking that. So Brendan and Jake's his brother, are still looking for a way into this castle. So they're just looking for any opening. So they end up walking over here. And what's interesting, when you go and click the link below and you actually go and watch Brendan's video, you will see right in this area there is something white that looks like it's just barely pokes its head out right there. And then this next one, you can see that it's out just a tad bit farther. So Jake gets over there, and if you look right in front of his face, you see this like something flying there, right? It's some type of insect. I can't tell what it is. But what's interesting is, once again, these entities have the ability to what? To see from our perspective. So at this point, our perspective would be Brandon shooting his brother and recording that insect. That insect's going to go past his face and fly up. And at that very moment, that's when whatever that entity is that sticks its head out takes that opportunity to confuse the camera. One thing that we've been considering lately is that since they are seeing from our perspective, is it possible for us to cover up the lens, the eyepiece, or the monitor from the backside of these cameras that we're using where they can't view it? And if we do that, would it be possible for us to capture them more frequently? because they wouldn't be able to see from our perspective if they're able. Now, they may be able to see underneath anything that we apply there, just because they're fourth dimensional, and there's really no way to stop that. Because theoretically, if we were all in our fourth dimension and someone was standing inside of me, not only would I be able to see everything about that person from all perspectives that could be possible, but I would also be able to see inside of them as well. So that's theoretically how the fourth dimension would work if we were in it. So I guess just covering up an eyepiece, I guess I just answered my own question. Covering up an eyepiece would not solve that problem, because they would be able to look underneath that tape and still see the monitor. But so anyway, so it does change. It goes from that, and right here you see it pop its head out. Let me show you a cropped up closer image of that. Okay, so this is going to be several different looks. Okay, so here's one that's more like in a high definition, and you can see something popping out there. And I'll tell you right off the bat, the Iroquois Technology hit on it, so that's why we're even spending time on it. We couldn't really get it to come out that clearly. It's there very briefly, but it's just interesting. When you go back and look at the video, you'll see that insect fly right past Jake's head. As soon as that insect turns up, that's when this, whatever it is, takes the opportunity to poke his head out to get a better look. But that's just something that is part of human nature to do that. Like I said, these things, their vision is actually too good because they can see fourth dimensionally. So they don't really have to poke their head out or even have to look around anything. That's just part of being human to still do that. So we move on. And what's interesting, and reason we're stopping here, is that the Iroquois Technology gets a hit in the bush right there to the left. And if you look to the right up in the sky, you actually see a bird, a dove, or something that flies out of that bush. Well, what's interesting is there is a couple, a man and a woman, that are lounging in that bush, and the man's got his right arm around her back, coming up under her right armpit, and then his arm is across, laying across her chest. And so what we think happens, that these guys come up there, and once again, this is nature. They're outside together. You never see this loving and hugging going on inside buildings ever. You always see it out in nature. So they're just enjoying a beautiful day. This is where they live most likely. And generally this is a place where American kids would not be with cameras, and they know it. So nature will always try to scare you out, because nature is no different than if you're an elderly person and you're living at the end of a cul-de-sac, and you look out your window and you see a bunch of kids walking around in a circle with a camera. You eventually will call the police on them. These people, they have their own police of nature that they use, but they also have the ability, just like any elderly person that sees a bunch of teenagers, to open a door and yell at them and say, "Get out of this neighborhood, you don't belong here." So in this case, these entities have the ability to use the wildlife um, to scare off kids. And it doesn't scare them off, but it definitely startles them, because they're walking up this path, that bird's in there, and my guess is they poke that bird, and right when they get to this location, this bird is, being startled itself by being poked by these entities, also scares Brandon and his brother. And that's what nature does. And I had an incident years ago. I was out jogging, and I was really into running at that time, and I would try to find different places that I could actually explore while I was out running. And so I had really good balance, so I always, I didn't mind to run in places that were kind of rocky paths or small paths through the woods. And I would actually drive, 30 minutes just to go running, for an hour in a location. And I had gotten to this place, and it was real early in the morning. The sun's just coming up. And so I see this like bike path, not like a bike path like the C&O Canal, where it's really large and everyone's got their child strollers and stuff like that. I'm talking about an actual bicycle dirt path that like BMX riders would ride down through the woods. So we're talking about 6 to 8 inches wide, and that's basically it. So I had ran around this one area that was the actual park, but now this goes off the beaten path, and I'm going to run to the edge and then run down this hill and kind of go down near this water edge. And so, like I said, the sun's just coming up. There's still dew on everything, and these three deer come tearing past me, and they're actually trying to get on the actual same path that I actually just got on to go to the edge and where it starts to go downhill. So they all three tear past me, clear, not anywhere close to me, and the one that is leading all of a sudden slams on the brakes, stops, and turns around. When he turns around, he runs smack into the one that's in second place. The one that was in third place runs smack into the ass of that one, that causes the second one to jump straight up in the air, no less than 10 feet. Now, the one that was in third place has turned around, and he is getting hit in the tail by the one that was in first place. So now they're both heading towards me full speed. The one that was 10 feet in the air is on its way back down. And when it comes down, it hits the one that was the first one, that's now in second place, in the ass, that he jumps, hits the one that's in first place in the ass, and all three of them come tearing past me, missing me by inches. So, what happened? Did I go on? Absolutely not. What spooked it? I don't know. So, in this scenario, let's say that wherever I was trying to go, that an entity knew that it did not want me down there and spooked that first deer that caused all that calamity, that in the end, I did not go down there. Because at that point, I was just happy to be alive, because all of these deers had antlers, and they were running towards me. So I was just so relieved that I didn't get injured or killed at that. It was terrifying. And I just don't know if you ever been close to an animal that gets spooked like that. It's pretty dangerous. And not until I actually discovered this did it take me back to that incident that I had years ago. And I can only just wonder. Is it possible? Sure, because now we have the Iroquois Technology. We can see the two people that are in there, and we can see that bird come out, and it did actually startle these guys. But it wasn't enough to make them turn around to do what I did, because I was like, okay, clearly I almost died. I'm not going down there. I am going home. I didn't even continue running that day. So here's the image that we captured, and right here in this square, you can see the male's face. He's got a big old mustache, and then the woman, and you can see her long hair, and you can see his hands across her chest. And if you look, you can actually see her body, and she's actually heavier from the waist down than she is up top. So, and you can see where her legs go down into the bushes. So that's a pretty good find, and that's the reason that bird. Now, when you watch the video, they actually hear dirt bikes that are riding right on the other side of this bluff, but it wasn't the dirt bikes that did it, and I'm sure that's what they assumed. It was these two individuals. Moving on. So as they near the castle, they get to this place that looks like a place that used to house either some type of equipment that maybe took care of the landscape, or they parked vehicles there. He really doesn't know. It looks almost like concrete garages or something. And what's interesting is the Iroquois Technology gets a hit right here in this image. And so when we go to zoom in, we come up with this. This, my friends, we call this gentleman Garage Man, just because he's in a garage. And so, yeah, you can see him right there. He's got a beard, and there's his eyes. And there looks to be someone right there below him as well. Over here to the left, there's someone actually manifesting in that corner. And then there's someone above him. Here's a better image of him. And you can definitely see his face. Here's his eyes. Here's an actual close-up of him. And there you have it. And the dirt bikes that they actually had heard earlier, they end up meeting up with these group of kids from Ireland. And so these kids have said, yeah, we've been in there plenty of times. We'll be happy to show you the way in. So anyway, so they go in. And as they were making their way up this mateship ladder, the Iroquois Technology got several hits back in here. We don't know if any of those are actual faces. We can't tell. We know that it got a hit back in there, and so clearly there's spirit energy in there. These three things that look like three faces, that they don't ever change. When we look at it later, they actually still look the same. So, you know, we're guessing whatever that is not them, but the Iroquois Technology is definitely picking up something that's inside looking out, that it just can't pull out because it's probably in between those things. It's in the darkness. And even though the Iroquois Technology can see in darkness, we cannot. So it'll hit on things that we can't see, but it definitely can see. So just want to let you know that. So as soon as they get inside the Iroquois Technology, this is the hallway right as they enter the window. And right here on the right, we get a big hit. So when we zoomed in, we end up getting this image right here. So if you look right here, there is what appears to be a figure or the face of a human, let's just say. Um, but the problem of it is what we think we're looking at. We're looking at someone who has sustained a massive injury. So let's kind of set it up for you. Right here, you see what almost looks like an injury of almost road rash, right? Something that if you fell off a motorcycle and uh, hit your face on pavement, that's what that would look like. If you look at his mouth, all of his teeth look like they have been broken and shattered. If you look at where his nose would be, it looks very high, and his whole orbital area is looks swollen. Even almost looks like it's full of fluid. So let's just imagine that this person, let's just call him, looked normal at some point. And let's say that he's on the field of battle and a cannonball gets shot and whisks past his head, but capturing him right behind his ear, moving from behind his head, moving forward, and it hits his cheekbone, right? So it captures him as a more of a glancing blow. So that would account for that road rash look. Then it would basically shatter pretty much all his teeth. That would account for all the broken teeth. The force and the impact traveling in that direction would basically take anything from the left side, his bone structure, and push it over towards the right. That would account for his nasal passage area and the bridge of his nose moving upward and being elevated because of that. And then he would die from his injuries. So that's what we believe that could possibly explain why this actual entity looks that way. And to us, that's what that looks like. Fascinating. Moving on. So the very next place they get to as they're walking through is this area. They're walking from one room to another room. So let me hold up a minute here and try to explain to you why we have this yellow shape, geometric shape there colored in. Up until this actual video right here, pretty much all the evaluation that CPI has done using the Iroquois technology has been in America. America's only basically 250 years old, right? We knew people there lived there before then. But as far as established societies, Europe is the oldest for us, or one of the oldest, anyways. And there was a lot of battles for land. There was a lot of battles that occurred for the right to sell goods and services. And as a result, a lot of these countries had ways to torture people. One way that they used to torture people, they had many, but one way they had was called the rack. And basically, they would secure a person, arms and legs, to this rack, generally at the wrist and at the ankles with ropes. And then they had a way to crank. They had two wheels, two cranks on either side. It looked like a large king size bed. And you would have guys on the one side of it or the top, and then guys at the bottom. And they would start cranking in the opposite directions. And those ropes or chains would pull the body apart slowly. And in most cases, the parts that gave up first would be the joints, the ankles, the knees, the shoulders, the elbows, the wrists would all pop, and you would hear that cartilage tearing and ripping. And it was extremely um, agonizing for the people who went through that. And a lot of these kings um, and people of torture then would figure out better ways to torture, as if torture alone isn't bad enough. But with the rack, they did a bunch of different things. They later applied spikes underneath the rack, so as the ropes tightened down, they would actually pull you down onto these spikes, because just the rack wasn't torture enough, or I guess. Um, then later, that wasn't enough, so they decided to elevate the torture platform and light fires underneath. So not only would you have spikes in your back, they'd also light fires underneath, and then you would still have your joints pulled apart. And if they would use it just to torture you, or eventually you would die from all of your injuries. And sometimes that was the what they planned on doing anyways. Some people got on there and they planned on killing them from this torture. They were never expected to live anyway. Iroquois technology has the ability to pick up this energy that takes place in any facility, and we don't know what we're going to see. We have no clue. When the Iroquois technology is actually running, it's running in pure darkness for us. We don't see anything. It just indicates a hit. We look at the counter and see exactly what frame, where it got the hit. Then we go back in and then we look at it, and then we'll apply the dynamic filtration. So in this case, right here, you could see the face of a man that's like almost grimacing with pain, but you can see him clearly. And so we wanted to add the dynamic filtration to the image to get it to come out a little bit better so you guys could see it. And I can't remember how long we ran it, but when I came back, not only could I see his face a lot better, but I could see all the injuries that had occurred to him. And I can tell you right now, some of the stuff we're just not going to show, just because we don't know who's watching this and how much they're going to be freaked out. For us and Iroquois Technology, we're doing a couple things. We're still, still doing research on this. The Iroquois Technology works, so we know we can discover whatever these things are. We can discover them now. That's not even a problem. And really, that's what we're doing. We are taking these images that are missed from these people who take these videos, evaluating those videos, and showing you exactly what also else is in their videos that they're missing. And that's really kind of the limit of what we're doing here. We're not here to scare people. We're really here to educate people to what our research has discovered. And we're definitely not here to gross people out. Would that, what's underneath that, would that gross people out? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it kind of grossed me out. And I kind of been in the business of seeing gross things for a long time in my life, in my career. But that's kind of really not what I want this channel to be. So whenever we see something that shows, and like I said, this has never been a problem in America. We haven't, did people get tortured? Yeah, but probably not in the great numbers that you would see, in some of these locations. And so we decided not to show them. I got together with all the guys on my team, and they agreed. It was like, it's not necessary to show it. the whole idea. Can you see a man there? Can you see his face grimacing? Yes. Okay. The Iroquois Technology has discovered, some more quantum energy in nature, and we're showing you that. That's kind of what we're doing. We're not here to terrorize people. And is it fascinating what's under there? It could be. If you work at a mortuary, that's how I look at it. I looked at it like 3 times, and I'm like, and by the way, you couldn't see it when we first got there. The dynamic filtration pulled it out, and so that's something else that we have to be aware of. We do have another photo that we're going to show you in this, where we believe someone was placed on a rack that was either a British or a French soldier. And we can show you that. It's not too bad. He's kind of elongated, and that's kind of where, but it's not as detailed as this. This is more like an autopsy, and we're not going to show you that. So you guys are probably going to complain and give me thumbs down for it, but we want people to enjoy all the images, but we don't want to scare people or terrorize them or say and see that. So that's just our call. You guys, you don't have to give us a thumbs down, but you can put in the comments kind of how you feel about it. And if a lot of people say, hey, that's what we expect from this site, we expect to see that, and then we'll all learn together, right? Us as content creators, and you guys as our subscribers who want to follow us and support us. But we just don't want to put an image out like that in the beginning, not knowing what people, because not a lot of people use the comments, so we're not really sure what people expect or don't expect, and that's what the comment area is for. So if you say, hey, we would like to see those images in the future, and the majority of the people who are on this site comment and saying, yeah, we think we can handle that, then then we don't have a problem. We just don't want to be wrong about it. We just don't want to put an image out that basically shows a man that was possibly filleted, on this channel, because that's not really what this channel is about. And but if you guys wanted to be there, like I said, we may never ever find an image like this ever again. It may be the only one. I mean, we've been doing it for 15 years, and this is the only one that we ever captured, and go, no, we're not, we're not going to show that. We have decided not to show things just because we didn't know what they were, and they look bizarre, just like the Mount Owen Moa. We thought that was a devil's hand or devil's claw in the beginning, and thank God that I didn't let it out until we figured out that it was just a prehistoric bird, and that way it saved all the internet stuff that would have went on. It probably would have went viral, but that's not really what we're looking for. We're looking, we're scientists, so we're looking for the more scientific answers to what we're doing here. So yeah, so we're deciding not to show this just because, like I said, it's just one image. Everything else we have is still good, So just comment and just say, if you think, everyone knows what an autopsy looks like, right? That's what it looks like under there. So if that's something that you guys want to see, not one person, but a bunch of people would have to say, yeah, we expect it for you as a scientist, running this organization to show us, what you discover. And this website can definitely do that, and we don't have any problem. And that's everything. But we have to get the comments from the majority of the people. And like I said, we discovered, and I said this in the last video, 54% of the people who watch are not subscribing. And if they're not subscribing, they're definitely not sending in comments. And we want them to continue watching. We don't want to lose people because they get creeped out and can't sleep for a month. Anyway, so moving on. So they go from there, and they go right around the corner, and bam, Iroquois Technology gets a hit right there. So, of course, like you, we look at it and go, what is it hitting on? Is it hitting on this little tan black dot thing? So we don't know. We can't see anything. So we go in and we apply the Iroquois Technology, because this is one of those things that I don't care if you're a ghost hunter, adventurer, or whatever, there's no way in a million years that you're ever going to pull anything from this without the Iroquois technology. And that's what our group does. We evaluate footage. We evaluate stuff that is occurring in this world that nobody could ever see without having a program like this. And when we click on it and apply the dynamic filtration, this is what we get. And right there you see two big brown eyes of a man, a nose, and a mustache, right there in the middle of the floor. He's right there. He doesn't look happy, but no surprise because this is on the inside. Interior spirit energy is just miserable, and that's our claim, and we're definitely sticking to that. Okay, so moving on. So again, as soon as they turns the corner, we get another hit. So we're basically, or whoever the cameraman is standing literally on the head of the entity that we just saw. So as soon as they turn the corner, we get a hit right here. And of course, when we zoom into that, this is what we get. And there's a definitely shadow that's right there staring at the man. Did they catch him off guard? Is he trying to keep them from going any further? My guess is he's there trying to appear to go any farther. So he would still be considered in the electron stage. He's not in the muon neutrino stage. He's definitely not in the tau neutrino stage. So he would still, when you look at the standard model, would still be in the electron stage. But the Iroquois technology still hits on him. So they come out of that room. They're walking around, and right here, the Iroquois gets a hit over Brendan's right shoulder over there against the windows. So if you look right here, you'll see a man that's wearing some type of top hat, and it looks like he's wearing like a white lab coat with dark sleeves. I'm sure there's probably like paint that's peeling over there, and he's probably just blended in. So his arm is probably the more color of he's probably wearing something dark. But there is somebody or a woman or a man that's to the right there on the other side of that pillar as well that you can see. But like I said, they're probably just blended in with some of the paint that's actually peeling over there. But the Iroquois technology got a hit, so that's how we know it's real, or at least what our program is seeking. And it discovered that. So here is, once again, we used our new HD, and it really kind of defines everything a little bit more. But you can see that is a man. Like I said, he looks like he's wearing kind of a lab coat or something. But that's a good catch there. We like that one because it got a hit, and then you can see his hat and his face and his collar. Okay. So they go from there, and they're actually going past this window, and right here in the crease between these bricks and this window, the Iroquois technology gets a hit. So you got to understand that every 25 steps or something, Iroquois technology is getting plenty of hits in this place. So each time we have to stop and we have to go and run the dynamic filtration, and so you can see it can take a long time when we're in a place, or when we're evaluating footage where they're getting a lot of activity all the time. It really makes what we do pretty busy over here. So, but we love it though. We love being able to bring these images to you, because when else would you ever see them? I mean, if these things are really occurring in the world, like the Iroquois technology is suggesting, this is the only time and only evidence where you could actually be able to see them so consistently in this manner. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but trust me, we love it, and we definitely don't mind it. So let me bring you a better image of that. But right here you can see the person, and this is the one that I made reference to, where we think this particular person was probably used on the rack as well, because his body looked very elongated, and you can see where his knees were, and there was like blood there. It looked like it's been blown out, and because of that, that would make perfect sense. So here's the first one where you can really get a better look at him, and you can see his pants and his knees come up, and then right between where his waist starts, pelvic area, there's a kind of dark area. It looks like something juts out, and we're not really showing it up close, but he's basically has been pulled apart, and that area has what we call eviscerated, meaning that his internal organs have popped out because of that rack. And so that was a weak area for him, because if you think about the thoracic cavity and the area between your pelvic and where the bottom of your rib cage is, where the xiphoid process is, and then you have just your spinal cord, there's not much there. And so if you're very lean and don't have a lot of muscle, like in your stomach, you could easily be torn apart. I mean, we see it in car accidents and motorcycle accidents and people that fall from great heights and land on fences. So it's easy to separate that area with the right amount of pressure. And so right here to the right is the actual closer version of it. And so all of those circles there are, is, blood stains from where we believe that occurred, and he was placed on a rack. And so he looks like he's in a uniform. So that's either, we believe, a British uniform or a French uniform. And you gotta remember, probably during this period, and we're really not sure. We're just kind of looking at the uniform. You gotta remember, it was King Henry VIII was probably the ruler. I think he ruled from like 1509 to 1547, and during that time they controlled Ireland, and they did have they were at war with France, and Ireland would have been supporters or allies of England at that time, or at least forced to be, because they were ruled by by England. And then then later on, I think that King Henry um, made it law that Ireland would have their own monarchy, or I think they put the Fitzgeralds in power then. But I think King Henry VIII, I think he was probably dead by the time that took place. That was like, I don't know, 1571 or something like that. You have to go back and look at it. We kind of glanced over it. Um, but yeah, so it's fascinating. So that's why we believe that that's either a British or a French soldier, and we're guessing French, that was probably placed on the rack. But he's definitely there. And once again, the Iroquois Technology did a great job. It hit right there in that corner. You couldn't see anything at first, but once we applied the dynamic filtration, these things really start to pop. Okay, moving on. So these guys move on, and their whole goal is to make it to like this bell tower at the top that's several floors up. It seems like they have to take these shortcuts because I guess the stairwells or out or blocked, or maybe non-existent. So they have to take these obscure paths of travel to get to the roof. That's kind of bizarre, but that's the direction that these kids that they met in Ireland are taking them. So if you look right here to the right, the Iroquois Technology actually gets a hit. Let me see if I can bring this up for you. So this might be difficult to see, but the Iroquois Technology definitely hit on it. Right here, you will see a row of teeth, and then here is where most likely his nose would be. And then you can see not much of his left eye, but you can definitely see his right eye. But what's most interesting about this image is that if you see where the corner of his mouth is and the corner of his eye is, the blood is actually running straight back, right? From the corner of his eye back towards his ear, from the corner of his mouth back towards his jawline. Well, that would only indicate that he was laying on his back when he was bleeding from his eye and bleeding from the corner of his mouth. So, what does this tell us scientifically? Most likely that he died while he was laying on his back. He wasn't face down. He was actually on his back and looking up when he passed away. And you can see that he has pooling of blood that's in his eyes, and that's called hyphema. And that's just, it occurs from injury. Either a forced blood trauma to the head or to the eye or something, and that blood will pool in the eye. So once again, scientifically, we go in and we look at not only what we capture, but how they are presented in what we see. So even though he's standing erect, the blood that is seen on his face has pulled towards the back of his head. So it just indicates that he was lying on his back in his last moments of life. Moving on. So this is a quite interesting. So to get up to this one level, I think there were like one or two levels from the top where they're trying to go. And so the Iroquois Technology gets a hit radar on this rafter over here to the left. And this is untouched. This is just exactly how it looked when we got the first Iroquois Technology hit. What is interesting and even creepier is that you can see the spirit energy of a woman right there. You can see her hair, you can see her face, and you can see the dark part of her body. That's fascinating. That's without any dynamic filtration. Now with the dynamic filtration, this is how it looks right here. So as you can see, you can definitely get a better feel on exactly how she looked and her long white hair. And then if you look to her right, our left, you will see that there is a face that is actually kind of straddling part of that rafter. And then behind that transparent face, there's actually two women that are over in the corner. And here's a closer up of them. And so there you are. You can see the one lady's hand is over top of the rafter, and then there's another little girl below her. So right here you would have one, two, three clear ones that you see that are there. And most likely these people are probably ancient, man. They could be 1,000 years old. Who knows? It's just fascinating if you ask me. So they climb up another level and they get to this dark area, and they're going through all these different passageways to get up to this roof. And you got to remember, this is a castle, so I don't know how long it took them. You know, I'm sure he edited it along the way, but it was definitely a journey. So they get right here, and there's this dark area, like a closet or something behind him. And when he moves, a figure of a man actually comes out of that, and here he is right there. That is incredible. That is a fairly clear image of a apparition. That is amazing. It's basically pretty much invisible. The Iroquois technology gets a hit on it, and the dynamic filtration just layered it up, and it really so it definitely likes this environment, maybe the darker. Not totally dark environment because we didn't have to run it long to get this image to come out. But yeah, you can get a clear look here. Let me even zoom in, and you can get a real good look at how this gentleman looked. And so there you go. There you have it. And what's interesting is it looks like a uniform. And once again, I don't know why I always think all these uniforms are German uniforms. They just look like German uniforms to me. Or at least that's what pops in my head. And you'll see something right there at his chest line jetting out. What we think that is that his hand is actually in a sling of some sort, and that's what you're seeing. You know, his hand's been propped up across his chest, just like anyone else is injured injured actually to their shoulder or their arm or something, and they put it in a sling, and we believe that's what we're actually seeing, and that's the tips of his fingers that or appearing at the end of that dark area that he's definitely in some type of sling. But once again, that's a great capture and amazing. So this place has a lot what looks like trap doors or like skylight areas, and they're climbing up and they're going up through these trap doors, these skylights. And Jake, his brother, had just came up through here, so Brendan's following along. And if you look right to the right over his left shoulder, the Iroquois technology gets a hit again. I mean, the entire way, step by step by step, these things are surrounding them constantly during this trip up towards the roof. And so we apply the Iroquois technology, and we get the hit. Then we apply the dynamic filtration, and this is what it gives us: the face of a man right behind him. Fascinating. Once again, let us go ahead and zoom in and crop it for you so you get a better look at who we're dealing with there. And And there you go. There's the eyes of a man that's looking to the right. What he's looking at over there, we have no clue. But there you have it. And that's what's good about our research. We're willing to zoom in as close as we could possibly get, because we're not creating this, we're not drawing these images. They already exist. And that's why, once again, remember, always go down to the link and go back and watch these guys and like their videos and all that. Because, like I said, they travel to all of these places. We're just evaluating it. That's all we're doing. We're just here to show you what they missed, and or what the eye cannot see without a technology like this. And that's pretty much it. So that's why we don't show their videos. That's why we don't use their audio. We want you to go to their websites and their channels and view it, just the way it was always meant to be. We don't want to take any credit from that. We're only taking credit for discovering what they missed or what they can't see because they don't have the equipment. All right, moving on. So these guys are near the end of their journey, so they get to the top floor before they go out to one more floor above that goes out to the roof area, and they get to this staircase, and there are probably about 3 steps that are missing. And my guess is the reason those steps are missing is, number one, a lot of people don't go up there, so there's no reason for to repair them. Three or two is that whatever these entities are, they don't want anybody to go up there, because my guess, whoever the most important people who are in that probably reside up there. And so what happens is all these other people that we've been showing you that they've been encountering are like sentries, right? They're supposed to keep the living from disturbing the dead. And so along the way, these entities have been trying to figure out what to do. So we get to this point right here. And so you can see the Iroquois Technology starts getting hit under these stairs. Okay, there's no reason to show you all that. We're just going to tell you. So we end up getting a bunch of hits, or hard hits, is like we like to call it. So there's a lot of entities over there, right? We're just getting this massive conglomerate of energy coming from there. And so he starts to make his way up the steps, and it's almost like they feel like, good, he can't get up because we removed those steps. Well, these are just kids, young teens, so they're nimble, right? So they walk right around, kind of put their feet on the edges and skip over those 3 steps, and that's what is going on here. So as soon as he gets to this point and the entities realize, oh crap, he's able to go up to the top where everybody else is living up there that doesn't want anybody up there. These things start to panic, and the very next shot you see is blurred. It's blurred because these things are panicking now. So what's happening in this whole room, the environment's changed. So these things are whipping around crazy. And so in the very next scene after you see it blur, now nothing's changed. They're recording this kid climbing up there. He's moving around. The camera's staying in the same place. Everything is exactly the same until he steps over that area that these entities believe that he couldn't do. And once he did that, everything goes blurry, or running around down there and trying to figure out how to stop him. Now, remember, they couldn't stop these guys the entire time. We capture them everywhere trying to stop them, but they can't, because once again it goes back to kaleidoscope of vision. They are fourth dimensional beings trying to operate in a third dimensional realm. Their vision is just too good, and for them to be able to pinpoint us, meaning the living, is not as direct as we think. Just because they're standing in front of us, just like we can in our third dimension, we can reach out, punch somebody in the nose because they're standing in front of us. Our equivalent of that would be, if we were in the fourth dimension, if I wanted to punch my friend in the nose that's standing in front of me, I may have to go into the kitchen, open the refrigerator, and then throw my punch into the center of the refrigerator to punch him in the nose in the next room. That's how it works for them. So what happens is they start panicking, everything starts getting blurred, then it starts to clear up, and right here, it's going to be difficult to see, an entity actually reaches up and puts his hand on the railing right below this kid as he goes up. So at this point, he's trying to shake him off those stairs, but he can't, because it doesn't work that way. His body's there, his hand is on the railing, but the energy that he needs to be able to shake those stairs are not in the same place where he resides at that moment. Even though he is there, but the actual place for him to shake that part of the stairs to try to scare that kid off may be in the next room or could be 10 feet up. I mean, it's always changing and evolving for them like a kaleidoscope ball that is constantly spinning in space, and it has all these little different panes, and all those panes is a different image of that same room. So they have to figure out, okay, if you want to grab this railing here and you want to shake him to scare him from going up there, the truth is you may have to be some other place. And who knows what type of calculation they would have to use. Listen, we don't even know if math as we understand it even exists in that time. We're not even sure if if time even exists in that time. Time may be only relative to us in our third dimension. Math may only be relative to us. We happen to know that some of the physics that we tried to use to answer and create the Iroquois technology in the beginning, the math said that it couldn't be done. So that means our math was wrong, or the math was wrong as it relates to the fourth dimension. So, we even have belief that math, as we understand it, doesn't even exist there. Remember, our math only exists after thousands of years of research to let us to where we are now. So in the beginning of time, our first day on this planet, there was no math, but yet we existed. So now we exist with the knowledge of math, but just because it's in our third dimension, we would be fools to believe that everything in our third dimension is going to carry over to the fourth dimension. That includes time. So they panic. We saw them panic because we saw everything go blurry. Now this entity floats up, puts his hand right on that part right there. The Iroquois technology goes off, gets a hard hit because all the energy is trying to do the exact same thing. We have to keep him from going up there because the king's up there, and the king is going to be pissed if these guys go up there. So all the energy in the room converges on that one spot. They take all their energy and give it to this one entity that has his hand on the railing, and we capture it. And this is what it looks like. Amazing. Look at all the energy of that huge white cloud that is behind the dark entity that is gripping that railing. And each week I say this time and time again, we have never seen anything like this before. That is an amazing discovery, an amazing image of this shadow that has decided or has been granted all the energy in that room that is supporting him from behind him. They are given everything they can into his back so he can stop that kid from going up there. But the problem is kaleidoscope of vision. All of that would work. They could probably break that entire stairs down, but they may have to be in the next room doing that. But now human nature is they're panicking. And you know what happens when you panic? You always do something that's messed up. So they have resorted back to their third dimensional way of being. And in the third dimension, when something happens and you panic, like someone runs up behind you and scares you, some people's first thing is to, run. Some people will turn around and punch whatever's behind them. They can no longer do that. They can't turn around and punch someone. And that's basically the equivalent of what they're trying to do. They're so in a panic that this guy and all of those kids are going to get up there to that tower that this is what they resort to. And then everybody follows him. Okay, give all your energy to Joe. And that's what happens. So Joe's got his hand on that thing. And you know what? They don't feel anything. Nothing happens. So this very next image you're not going to be able to see clearly just because. So they go from this image to this image. And all you're seeing here, and you can't see it, is all of that energy has dispersed all at once. And basically, if you could see the look on his face, because his head's really big now, because all his energy is rushing to another location. And the look on his face is, and you know why he said that? Because two more steps, they're going to open that door. And you know what? All those guys that you just saw in that big conglomerate are in trouble. And that's why you see a That's what happens, right? In our third dimension and in our fourth dimension. We mess up, right? Our job was to do X, Y, and Z. We did not do it. There are powerful people in here. And remember, these are the same that put people on the rack. Okay? So these entities would be terrified. They would be terrified. And plus, they're not living in nature. You know, they're hateful people that are in there and they're despiteful. So those people or those entities are in big, enormous trouble, in my estimation, of allowing these kids come up there. And that's what the scene is. So, once again, that's what's so cool about this channel. That's what's so cool about the Iroquois technology and the dynamic filtration. And that's what's so cool about able to go and just evaluate these images. Because a lot more is going on in this world for these guys that are out doing that, and we can at least bring that to them, and so when they go out they can look for these subtle changes that are occurring in nature that they normally wouldn't see. So thank you, love you guys, and see you next week. Ciao.